Hey everybody, welcome to episode 92 of Glass to the Wall. This is Neil Flynn, and we've got Luke Hemming,
Hello.
Sandy Wilson,
Hi.
Mike McCann,
Hey.
and we're all here today to talk to you about the wonderful world of video games. We are so close to the next gen launching. We are literally days away from the next gen launching, and we've got multiple topics to talk to you about today. That's including Miles Morales' gameplay footage and our first impressions, a brief talk about the next jump to next gen. We've got the online only console launch for the first time that we've ever seen. Quick resume versus quick loading, and also one of the big acquisitions of the week, Take-Two by Codemasters. But anyway, let's jump straight into things, and that is Miles Morales, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, Miles Morales is cross-play between PS4 and PS5. It's launching on both. Is this the perfect business decision for a new console release? Has it come at the perfect time? You know, cashing in on the Miles popularity, etc., etc. I'm going to throw this to you, Luke. I know you're a big Spider-Man fan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is a sensible decision by Sony?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's ever been, as you said, a more popular time for Miles Morales. Following comics quite a lot, they've tried a few reboots with Peter Parker, but currently now they've accepted that he is an older character. He has his own life, but a lot of people are finding that difficult to jump into. So by bringing Miles Morales in, it feels like a total reboot again for the character. It feels like your new Spider-Man for people of this age, and the people who are looking at gaming, I think, are definitely going to jump in on this. Into the Spider-Verse is huge. The comics are huge at the moment. There's never been a better time, and I don't think there's been a better idea for Sony to use Miles Morales at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, great time for the game to be coming out in general, obviously. But Sandy, do you think this should have been made a PlayStation 5 exclusive?
I think it's fairly smart of Sony to make it cross-gen, but I mean, if it had been PS5 only, we'd maybe see a few more PS5 only features being kind of really delved into.
Mm. And Mike, in terms of playing an older gen game or a newer gen game, you know, we saw it probably in the last Nintendo Switch and Wii U. Obviously, we had Breath of the Wild on Wii U and Nintendo Switch, and it launched like that. Got a very similar situation here with Miles Morales. Would this encourage you to buy PlayStation 5, knowing that you're going to get slightly better performance out of it on PS5?
Yeah, I have to say, I kind of thought I wouldn't be that affected by it. You kind of think, ostensibly, it's the same experience that you're getting on current gen as you are on next gen. But then I've been watching the reviews the last week, and just seeing how crisp everything looks. People talking about the haptic triggers and all this kind of stuff. It does make you feel like you're missing out a little bit, and like you feel like maybe I should wait and just play it next gen, because that might be the best way to play it. So there's incentives there, definitely.
And Luke, would that hold you back, kind of what Mike was just saying there, you know, in terms of the performance boosts and stuff like that? If you weren't getting a PS5 on launch, would you still jump in the PS4 version as a huge Spider-Man fan?
Yeah, I think I'm far too invested not to. Even without the comic book lore and such a huge influence in my life being comic books, Spider-Man for the PS4 was probably one of the best games I've played in years. Whether being a Spider-Man fan or not, there was nothing better than just swinging around the city with it, and I wouldn't want to miss out on that. I'd want to get on that as soon as possible. But as Mike said, I've watched probably the same things that Mike has seen, and seeing it run on that PS5 console. If I didn't have a PS5 on the way, then this would be certainly the way I'd want to play it.
Yeah. Counterpoint, I guess. What does it say about a new title when its biggest release, or a new console release, I should say, when its biggest release is sort of being scaled down, or a reskin of an existing title? You know, there's a bit of a lack of innovation there. Miles Morales, I think, is going for £70 on the PlayStation 5. The PS4 version is still retailing at £49.99. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
So obviously, if you've got a disc-based version, you could probably play the PS4 version on the PS5. It's still a little bit complicated. In fact, I think I saw a Venn diagram of every single option that you've got to play Miles Morales and Spider-Man for the PS4. Sandy, what do you think about this? Do you think that they should have just perhaps cut it off? Next gen is next gen, as they said, as PlayStation said, when they're not going to bring things forward, and they've had to be a bit sort of red-faced about this.
I mean, certainly from a buyer's perspective, that would be the simplest way to promote everything. Just, this is it. This is the next gen package. There is nothing else. Because when we look at the options that are available, I'm just not entirely sure that I would buy the PS4 version when the PS5 part is essentially, you've got your ray tracing, your higher frame rates, your fancy haptic controllers and stuff. I feel like you would be missing out, and the price difference is maybe not enough to make the PS4 one feel viable.
Well, here's another thing. When I got a DVD player, the first DVD that I got was Spider-Man. 2002, I think, Spider-Man. I don't know about everybody else, but I think a lot of people probably owned that DVD. I felt like that was the centerpiece for the PlayStation 3 logo. Sorry, for the DVD format. And the PlayStation 3 logo. But do you think this could be the centerpiece for the PlayStation 5? Do you think people are going to be using this as, here is that brand new exclusive. I want to show off my PS5. I want it to look shiny. I want it to look crisp. Mike, is that something for you, having that as, your brand new toy? You've got a PS5 sitting on your desk. You want that launch title? Or is there another launch title that you think is more worthwhile?
Yeah, you definitely. It's always nice to have something that's going to be a bit of a showcase for the hardware that you've just bought. And as you've said, it is a little bit like it's feeling like it's a bit of an incremental step, like maybe a little bit of a expansion for Spider-Man 2016, 17, whatever it was. So you kind of do just want something that's going to be killer, developed fully for that console, from the ground up. Whether Demon Souls might be that, I don't know. It's obviously a remake, but it's looking like a very high fidelity remake as well. But I'm still holding on for that one game. Ratchet and Clank's another one, looks amazing. But I'm holding on for that one. I want like a new IP which is going to really showcase what next gen can do.
Yeah. And Luke, how do you feel about that in terms of is it the centerpiece? Is it that thing that makes your PS5 pop? Is there something else that you reckon is actually a better example of this?
I would agree with Mike that the Demon Souls is probably what's going to show it off best, but it's that accessibility as well. You know that anyone, even with a slight interest in games, is going to pick up Spider-Man, is going to start playing it, and even if they don't get that fidelity in the graphics, they're going to understand that this is your fancy toy to show your PS5 off with. I don't think there's been anything else at the moment that has got that. Godfall is looking good, and I think that could show off a lot. But as you said, a lot of the things are just going to be just maybe not that accessible for people to sway them over. I think Miles Morales is going to sway a lot of people onto a PS5 sale after 5 minutes of playing it.
And it's definitely more than Xbox has got as well, which is not to, pit them against each other, but, they really need that exclusive as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does, so talking about the leap to next gen, I guess, as we transition into this subject, how excited are we all going into the next gen? You just mentioned there, Mike, that, there's quite slim pickings on the Xbox and the PS5. But if you compare this to other console launches, is there anything that's comparable, in history, when PS4 and Xbox One launched, or when the Wii U launched, or the Wii, Xbox Series 60, PS3? Is there anything comparable in time? And Sandy, I'll throw this to you afterwards as well. But Mike, do you remember a time in history where you were more excited for a console launch, or is this it?
I mean, certainly not for, the current state of play in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, I don't think that was planned for these console launches at all. but they've kind of gone ahead with release anyway. But it does feel like maybe they're both having a bit of a softer launch than they would have done if there wasn't a pandemic going on. So it feels like it's going to be a bigger jump than the previous gen for sure. But it definitely feels a bit different from anything else that I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the 2020 sort of situation in 2020, our real world situation, Sandy, do you think that's impacted the console launches in terms of the sort of software lineup? Let's just talk about that for now.
I certainly feel like it has. I mean, a lot of developers have managed to continue working just out of their offices and things like that. So maybe it was always going to be this sort of limited selection for the console launches themselves, but I feel like maybe we'd have a couple more big things, like maybe Microsoft would have Halo had 343 been able to work more closely during this year and things like that. Kind of hard to tell, but that's probably what I'd say. The pandemic has definitely affected game production, I think.
Yeah. And Luke, we're all big gamers here. Are you excited about this upcoming generation? PlayStation 5, Xbox. We're coming into launch week. The PlayStation 5 launches, I think, on Thursday, right? And the Xbox Series S and X launch on Tuesday. The PlayStation 5 launches the Pac Rim region only. Europe gets theirs the week later. But are you excited? Does it feel like launch week?
It doesn't. From those first trailers and watching and the hype building, I was at fever pitch. I could not be more excited about a release week. But I think that with the current situation and something we touched on last week, not seeing those bricks and mortar stores, not seeing those adverts as you walk down the street, keeping that hype going, it doesn't feel like a launch week. And it's not to say I'm not just as excited about having this console and playing these games, but it hasn't got that Christmas morning feeling that you keep going for those 2 weeks, I reckon.
And just to top that up as well, so on the PlayStation blog earlier this week, when the PlayStation 5 launches this month, Sony won't be selling the consoles in stores. Instead, launch days will be online only. In the interest of keeping our gamers, retailers, and staff safe amid COVID-19 today, we are confirming that all day of launch sales will be conducted through the online stores of our retail partners. And that's from Sid Schumann on the PlayStation blog. Sony themselves have also said no units will be available in store for purchase on launch day. That's November 12th or November 19th, depending on your region. Please do not plan on camping out or lining up at your local retailer on launch day in hopes of finding a PS5 console for purchase. Now, as you just said there, Luke, part of the hype, I guess, is seeing it in real life, seeing the events, seeing the retail pizzazz, especially if you're in a larger city. The retail stores tend to have events going on. Oxford Street, for example, there'll be a line all the way down Oxford Street, waiting for this. We saw that with the pre-orders when they went live. Is this the right decision, considering the current guidelines, particularly in the UK, but obviously around the rest of the world as well, as everyone goes into lockdown? Luke.
I believe it is. What I've been considering is, I think you are going to get the mums who are going to be out there on launch day, who their kids have suddenly told them, I want a PS5 for Christmas. They're not following the blogs. They're not following the information. All the kid knows is he wants to be playing his shiny new PS5. So I think you are going to get those people, but it is the right decision. And the way that you look at things as well, was anybody going to be able to walk into a store and buy a PS5 or buy an Xbox? Online only did seem like the only way you were going to get one in the launch window anyway.
Well, you say that. I used to work for one of the UK's largest retailers, and we used to keep some back for retail only, actually, to drive traffic to the store, to drive footfall to the store in the day, saying, we've got some available, you can't pre-order them, you have to line up here. It was to create hype. I actually picked up my Wii like that from a game station back in 2006. I hadn't pre-ordered a Wii, and I got in line It's very. I actually, it was one of my first things I wrote on Cube 3, believe it or not. And yeah, that's how I got my Wii. And there was a line of I don't know, about a good 500-600 people waiting for that. And they had this whole big showcase of Domino's came down. They were delivering pizzas to everybody in the queue. You know, take a slice, take a box. They had girls giving out champagne. You know, there was champagne just flowing throughout the streets of Birmingham on a cold December night.
Sounds better than my midnight
Yeah.
launches experiences.
This does not feel like the Welsh countryside launches that we're used to.
No.
I queued up for the midnight launch for the Nintendo Switch. I was number one in Sydney, also pretty much number one in the world at that point because of the time difference as well. And because I was number one, they actually gave me my NES Classic for free. So this old baby that sits here, I actually got that for free just because I was number one in the queue. And you get to sit there and you get to talk to other people in the queue, and they hype you up as well. There's always someone in the queue that's more hyped up than you.
Yes.
And that is a really fun experience. We were all playing our 3DSs. You know, Street Pass was going through the roof, and yeah, it was actually quite an exciting time. But do you think we're still going to see campers camping outside the store because they want this experience? Sandy, have you got any experiences to talk about? Would you camp outside if you hadn't had one pre-ordered?
So I don't really have any real world experience of having to wait in massive queues on launch day. I think my dad did for me back when the Wii launched. And I definitely got Halo Reach in store at midnight once.
Not on Wii.
Yes, for the Wii.
A grave error.
I think were we in a normal situation, I might have queued outside a store with a bit more launch hype. But with this year and everything, like the online launch is pretty much the only way that they could go. I think it's a good safeguard. Yeah.
And Mike, do you think because of this sales are going to be affected?
It's hard to say. I mean, they know they've got the hot product for the Christmas season, so there's also going to be another element of it being motivated by profit margins as well. So that the ideal is that they're being bought directly. Well, can you buy it directly through PlayStation, or are they just saying it's only going to be online?
I think it's only online. So using any retailers within the world that they have.
Okay.
Microsoft, for example, here they have a Microsoft store on Oxford Street, Regent Street. Huge store. They've got a massive Xbox section in there. I could only imagine the launch party they would have had for the Series S and X going in there, because they would have queues going up and down that street. They've got a whole experience center there. They would have systems set up for people to play, no doubt. And with everything going on, it's probably ruined that sort of plan of action. They've had to probably rethink their way. Luke, have you ever camped out for anything?
Yeah. Thinking about it, and after hearing you though, your experiences sound vastly superior to the kind of experiences that
we had a good one for the week, didn't we? So,
yeah, Mike and I queued outside our local number one UK retail outlet for a Wii, and
I believe that's
Game Pass
Tesco
is right.
if you're saying number one.
Well, one that has is full letters and is purple. Those guys.
Oh, them. Okay.
Yeah. I think we did take our 3DSs down. I think there was the idea that we get the Street Pass hits.
Yeah, high expectations.
Yeah, I think there were 4 of us, but they were, like you said though, there was the guy who was majorly hyped. He Indiana Jones rolled under the shutters, ran for the door.
That was the best bit.
Yeah, that was better than getting the console. but yeah, I've always enjoyed the midnight launches, and I think that only adds to the enjoyment of the console, is doing those things. But I think I need to move to London if those are the experiences you're having, and
It's
we're
not
just
just
hanging out
London.
with
I think if you're in a big city, if you're in Manchester, Birmingham, London, where a store is going to open, where they've got the numbers of people turning up, for midnight launches and stuff.
Yeah, we don't have those cities. We haven't heard of those cities you're talking about.
Having said that, I remember there was a period of time, I think during the 360 PS3 era, where supermarkets were really trying to get in on the games situation. I remember going around to a large supermarket in the UK because they had FIFA, God knows what year, a ridiculously low price. I think it was launching at like £25 or something, but only on launch day and only for a certain number of copies. And the pandemonium that was happening in the supermarket at midnight, when they don't normally have to handle games launches. There was a time where this was happening quite a lot. I guess Call of Duty also had a similar launch windows as well. But with that said, not all of the world is in this lockdown pandemic state. Do you think they could have actually made this based on specific country guidelines? Would that have been more fair? Because they're taking away from our launch because the numbers here are through the roof. But in other countries in the world, it perhaps isn't as bad. For example, Australia and New Zealand, where they're not really recording any cases. Do you think that Sony should have perhaps considered those?
Such a fluid situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it could change in a heartbeat, isn't it? Why not blanket it? I think like Mike said, the grief that you would get as well if you said, fine, New Zealand can walk into a shop and buy a PS5, but everyone else can't. It's not worth the grief, is it?
Well, they should have been more sensible during the summer.
Can't imagine the backlash if the numbers went up as well from it.
Yeah. No, we've not seen an announcement from Microsoft. At least I haven't. Have any of you seen an announcement?
No, nothing.
Microsoft saying something similar. I guess the thing is particularly depending on country to country, you can't queue at a store anyway. There are some stores that are offering click and collect. You would have had to pay in store prior to this. So I believe some of the big UK retailers are saying, if you've paid and you paid up front, you can come collect it from our store on launch day, but please do not queue up outside. I think people are still going to queue. They're not going to be able to buy one, but obviously they might queue up to be there for their launch thing. So I don't know how stores are going to handle that, whether they literally just open the front shutter and they just hand it to them. They put a table there or something and hand it to them as so. Well, as we transition from this sort of online console launch, in terms of features that are going to be implemented into our new PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X's, are two of the most hotly talked about items, and that's quick resume versus quick loading. Two very different features, I guess, because what quick resume is actually doing is quick resume is jumping back into a game that has a suspended state. So you might not have saved, or for example, you literally just jumping straight back into the game. And quick loading, which is the PlayStation 5 option, means that the game boots up much quicker. Now, Sony Next Gen doesn't have the quick resume function, but Eurogamer have said this. Here's the good news. Our calculations peg a cold boot of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales at around 9 seconds. Astro's Playroom powers up in approximately 8 seconds. This won't retain your game state, so you'll need to have reached a save point or your progress will not be retained. Ever since Microsoft started showing off the Xbox Series X, this feature has snowballed in importance, and some communities are seeing it as some of the most important things. It'll be interesting to see whether the Japanese giant has plans to implement something similar at a later date, or whether it believes that overall speed of the SSD is good enough to circumvent quick resume entirely. At launch, though, it's not here. Would you guys decide on a console based on quick resume versus quick loading? Sandy, are you a man that needs things quickly?
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's lovely when you can just resume a game from where you were, or if your game loads like snapping your fingers, an experience I have with my PC because I recently upgraded it. I don't think it makes or breaks the console for me either way, and I do worry about performance impact if you just keep loading in and out of all these games if they don't cull all the processes and things. It's very interesting. Like I think it definitely makes me think that Xbox is going to be ahead in terms of using that kind of feature. Like the user experience will benefit from that, I think. But when I'm playing games, I always go to a save point, always quit the game. So PlayStation, Xbox is going to feel kind of the same, to be honest.
Fair enough. Luke, is this an important feature for you? Is this a console-defining feature for you?
I thought it was when I saw when I read the article that you just mentioned. It seemed mental that the PS5 wasn't doing this, but then given a little thought, like Sandy said, have I ever not saved a game? I don't trust a game is going to start where I left it. I'm too old for that. You save, you check your objectives, you close the game down. So I don't think it's going to be a massive issue for me, but I think it is something they do need to patch in because there are this new generation of gamers who expect these kind of things and are not OCD and don't trust that games will do what they say they'll do.
Mike, are you someone who gets frustrated by long load times, needing to jump straight back into things, or are you quite happy to wait?
It does seem like that's where one of the most revolutionary aspects of these new consoles are going to be, like where the war is going to be won or lost kind of thing, because it does seem like everyone's talking about quick loading, how good the SSDs are, what it can do for your game experience, and it does sound exciting to me. I'm definitely not a fan of long loading screens, but things like quick resume, I could take it or leave it. If the trade-off is for a quicker, more lean UI, then I'm happily chop it out for a leaner experience.
Now, I've got my Xbox booted up here, my Xbox Series S. I know you can't really see it very clearly. You can probably just sort of make the outer edge of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in. I'm currently in a game, and I know you can't really see much, but you can see how the quick resume feature should work. It's not working with Yakuza though, is it?
Classic.
I tried this before we started. But, there you go. Let's go back to the home screen then. I was playing a bit of FIFA earlier. Let's see if this jumps back in, and it should do. On the quick resume comes up at the top, and I'm back in already, exactly where I was before I left. I can jump from FIFA, and I'll go back to the home screen again. You can actually pick up one of those games that you can see there. And I'm going to try and jump back into Dirt 5. It's not working. So there you go. It's kind of going. It's taking me back to the title screen. It's taking me back to the boot up screen. So if I was in the middle of a game there, which I was for Dirt 5, I've lost my progress. It's kind of going back to what you guys were saying. You don't trust it. You always save a game beforehand, and I'm sure. And by the way, just to caveat this, Microsoft have actually told us they are still working on a patch for some things for quick resume. I know this goes to backwards compatibility and stuff like that. The feature does work very well when it does work. I'm not going to lie, it's incredible. I booted up Gears 5, which I'm just trying to find now. Let's see if this works. Wow.
And that's the Series S, though, to clarify.
This is the Series S, but they have the same architecture and they have the same promise of quick resume. I did use it earlier today. I don't know why it's not working, but just like in my Series S review, I did mention that it doesn't actually tell you that when you close one game, whether you open another game, whether you're actually closing quick resume function on another game. So as I'd opened up a few other games there, it obviously hasn't told me that I'll be losing that quick resume function in FIFA or maybe even Dirt 5 or even Yakuza. I'm not quite sure. So it's not overly clear which ones are going to be utilized. When it works great. But do I trust it to not delete my game progress? Probably not. The one place I do actually use this quite a lot is the Switch. I know it's not the same thing because you're not switching from game to game, but to be able to put something in standby mode and then just, come straight back to it when if you've got off the train, you come back onto the train or whatever, you just switch it in standby mode, come back. I think it's a great function, and so I think a lot of people will be, if they didn't use something like this before, because the Xbox One does have a similar function, then they might really get used to it now. I guess the long and short of this rant, though, is with this, that is showcasing the power of the SSD. And for them, particularly Microsoft, who are selling proprietary SSD tech, if this works well, and it should work well, then it's an upsell. Do you think it's an upgrade worth having, Sandy? An SSD?
Yeah, I think so. So it's like, I mean, I was playing the Xbox One the other day, and just the amount of time from clicking something in the menu to the actual boot of the game is very long-winded. I'm looking forward to seeing that, shortened by 90% or whatever the close promise is. It'll certainly revolutionize changing game. I don't know if it'll revolutionize that much inside the games, but we'll see.
And Mike, in terms of what we've seen so far, and we've seen some comparisons. I know some websites have done comparisons between loading times on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Do you think that this is going to be, it's quite quick now, but as we get towards the generation, as we get to that sort of mid-gen point, are these games going to be loading as quickly as 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 12 seconds? Do you predict that they might take longer, or do you think it's going to stick at that particular mark?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the read speed's not going to change at all. But I guess when you are going to be loading in bigger textures, potentially global illumination maps and things like that, then it could take longer. But I really don't know. I don't know enough technicals to say either way. But I hope not. I mean, but the other thing with hardware is it does slow over time anyway. Usually, that's usually the case in my experience as well. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, and Luke, we had a similar predicament back in the 90s with the PlayStation and the 64. I guess a lot of people were, the Saturn as well. There were quite long load times back then. Did you have a Nintendo 64, Luke?
Yeah, I didn't have one at launch. I had a PS1, but yeah, ended up getting one eventually.
And the comparison between those two, where you had something like the 64, which would, you turn that cartridge on and it booted up straight away versus your PlayStation. Did that ever make you think, I'm going to play the 64 today, I can't be bothered to hear that PlayStation sort of whir around?
I think by the time I got my N64, I had my PS2, but it was noticeable. There's something to be said about, like you said, plugging a cart in, and I still think everything should be on carts. That is just how it should be, because everything works. You know that in 20 years you're going to be able to pick that cart up. It's still going to work.
Hopefully.
And yeah, the loading times were noticeable. And I suppose when I was younger, I never really thought about it. I'm thinking about it a lot more now. But yeah, there were certainly games that would take such a long time to load, if at all. Like we've all been on that PlayStation 2 home screen, putting our disc in, watching those little stars and cubes spin, praying something will load. Whereas I never even considered that with my N64.
Yeah, the reason I've actually just booted up F1 2020 again here, because not only are we going to talk about something like that, but I just wanted to actually bring it up about, and this has actually gone back into quick resume. That's funny. Which is great, because that means it's actually working again on some of the backwards compatible. But this actually loaded incredibly slowly on the Xbox One. Between races, it would load a load screen which just had the animation of the F1 2020 and then go into another load screen for about another 30 seconds. I actually want to see if it's any quicker on Xbox Series S. I've not played it on this yet. Gone and booted into a race, so I'm actually going to do that for a second. I just want to see if load times are any quicker. Still loading. Now, not that Codemasters have come out and said they're going to be updating this. I just wanted to see if natively the Xbox Series S hardware was going to do it, but I don't think it particularly has. However, transitioning to Codemasters, some very, very big news has come out this week from Take-Two and Codemasters themselves. So Take-Two own 2K. They own they publish a lot of the Rockstar titles, obviously, and now they're going in for the UK-based Codemasters. So here's a statement provided from or statement provided to VGC. Take-Two confirmed the news, saying the acquisition would bring together two world-class interactive entertainment portfolios with highly complementary fit between 2K and Codemasters in the racing genre. Take-Two Interactive has until the 4th of December this year to announce its firm intention to make an offer for Codemasters. Now, Codemasters have published so many great games in the past, from Micro Machines to the old Dizzy games. They're more well known now for sort of the racing games such as Dirt 5 or Formula 1 games as well. Guys, what retro Codemasters title needs a next gen release? I'm going to come to you, Luke. Is there anything that you have got in the Codemasters bank and repertoire to bring forward?
Like you said, I would go Dizzy HD Switch remaster, and just rake the profits in.
And Mike, are you a big fan of Codemasters' portfolio of games? Are you into racing games? Because obviously they tend to concentrate a lot more on those these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I dip in and out, and Codemasters now, they pretty much do have the lion's share of the property. If it's not Gran Turismo or Forza, it's pretty much going to be. It feels like it's going to be made by Codemasters. Is a very likely. It's very likely that they're going to make it. Yeah. So, what was the question?
Are you just a fan of Codemasters' portfolio of games, I should say?
Yes.
Anything...
Yeah. I definitely go back to Micro Machines. That was quite a formative experience playing Micro Machines on the Mega Drive. Famously got right up to the last level and failed the last level, and I've never quite got over it. But that was a great game.
Yeah. And Sandy, what about yourself? Are you a big fan of the Formula 1 games or the Dirt games, Colin McRae, or anything else that they've published in the past?
I'm definitely a huge fan of what used to be Colin McRae and is now Dirt. Specifically Dirt Rally 2. I played a lot of that recently. I don't think I have any games from their history that I would remake as such, because they've all been evolved and re-released and changed and updated throughout the years. But I'm certainly not going to stop buying their output.
Fair enough. And Take-Two have actually now becoming quite a big behemoth of a studio. With 2K in there, with having Rockstar in there with Grand Theft Auto and things like that. Having Codemasters as part of their portfolio, that is going to be a sort of a plethora of games to handle. Do you think Take-Two are capable of this? Anyone?
I would certainly hope so. They seem capable, so.
Could any of you see a downside? Is there anything that Take-Two have done with perhaps 2K games in the past that maybe you might be a bit more concerned about, or even Rockstar?
I would say I'm only concerned about if Codemasters take on. This might be a benefit actually if maybe Codemasters took on the WWE titles. I've played a lot of the 2K titles of them, and there are issues, shall we say, and playing 2K Battlegrounds as well on the Switch quite lately, it definitely seems to be a major backward step, and if they put that down to maybe stretching themselves too thin at the moment, I would be very worried about any further output from those titles if they're split in development teams, and you'd hope not.
No, I think Codemasters has got it pretty sweet at the moment. They've got some great licenses. The Formula 1 goes from strength to strength every year. Honestly, the last 3-4 years of Formula 1 have been fantastic. I think F1 2020 is probably my favorite F1 game of all time. I think that they're a studio. In terms of the WWE games, it's in a similar position to what Konami are doing with PES. PES is skipped the 2021 edition or PES just so, but they've released it, but it's a season update. They're obviously waiting until next year to really get a next gen game, and WWE are doing the same thing with the, I think this is the first time a WWE game hasn't launched an annual franchise in a very long time. Got Battlegrounds there, but I felt like that was more of a placeholder and probably rushed as well to get into that September slot. I'm not quite sure how much Codemasters could lean towards that, and unless they brought back Wwe Crush Hour. Now that was a great game. That was a sort of a Demolition Derby WWE game, which was very oddly placed.
It's not the one where the Undertaker drove a hearse.
Yeah, they all drove particular things. I think it was like 2002, 2003 era. Fantastic game. I actually loved that game. It was, didn't even know who developed that. I don't think, probably was a Ukes and THQ game, but yeah, if Codemasters came in and did something like that would be interesting. But I think they might keep them as a standalone studio, just kind of like how Microsoft are doing with all their studio acquisitions. They've kind of kept them in isolated chunks. Rare is still Rare, for example. So I think Take-Two, if they complete this transaction, would remain in place. Okay, well, just before we wrap up episode 92, let's just go round table one more time and just see where everybody's playing at the moment. Mike, is there anything that you've got on your playlist at the moment that you would like to share?
I'm still playing Alan Wake and Final Fantasy 15, which I'm enjoying the bombast, the kind of spectacle and the melodrama of that still. Coming up for review, I've got Part-Time UFO, which is really good, actually. So I think, review coming for that.
Brilliant. And Luke, what about yourself?
I'm still playing Watch Dogs, Watch Dogs Legions for the PS4, with a little spattering of Middle-earth Shadow of War on the Xbox One. It's great for a bit of a pick-up-and-play title, run around, take over some orcs, send them to kill some other orcs, all in the space of 10 minutes. Brilliant.
Fantastic. And Sandy, on to you. Is there anything that you've got on your plate at the moment?
So yesterday I got my hands on Super Mario 3D All-Stars, so I've been playing through Mario 64 for the last few hours.
Good game, man. 10 out of 10, I did.
And for a review, I've just blasted through Little Hope, the new Dark Pictures game. And cool. Yeah, I can already say it is something quite special, I think.
Amazing. In terms of myself, I've been playing a bunch of Xbox One titles. I've actually been getting stuck into FIFA Ultimate Team, but playing through Gears 5 again with the enhanced sort of Xbox Series S stuff, and still going through Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection. I haven't made much progress in this past week, but no, it's been a fantastic sort of couple of months for games. And in fact, I think as November goes through and all these new next-gen releases are coming up, I think we're going to be inundated with titles. Have you guys pre-ordered anything? Have you guys got anything coming in the next week or two?
Just waiting on that PS5 with Miles Morales.
Mike, have you got anything on the horizon?
Cyberpunk for me. That's the only thing I've got.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm still anticipating and looking forward to.
Keep that anticipation going strong.
Right. Who knows? It might slip into next year.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got Super Mario Game & Watch coming this week, believe it or not. So
is that out this week?
I think it's out this week. Yeah.
Oh, then I will be joining you in that, because we've
got three big releases this week. We've got the Xbox Series S and X. We've got the PS5 in pack room, and then we've got the Nintendo launch this week as well. So that's all things to look forward to. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna have to make sure I look after that postman.
Check my bank account, I think. Forgot about that.
Well, guys, thank you very much if you've made it to the end of Glass to the Wall episode 92. If you're still here and you've not subscribed before, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go and check us out on Twitter at cubed3.com. go and check us out on Instagram at cube3.com. Go and check us out on Facebook at cube3.com, or go and check us out at cube3.com. And if you want to go and check out Sandy, Luke, and Mike, what are your handles? Sandy?
Squidgy Buffalo is my Twitter handle.
And Mike?
Right, I've got this week. Movement_matter, no ease.
Okay. No ease.
Is no one in math there?
Maybe, I don't know. I'll let you know next week.
And Luke?
At Lem207.
And I'm at Flynn Neal. And guys, thank you very much for joining anyway, once again. And to the team, to the panel, thank you very much for all your contributions once again. But for now, that's all. Thank you very much.